All right, Saturday. Let's see what's on the agenda for today. Huh. Wait, what? That's right, the channel has at long last reached 10,000 subscribers. 5 whole digits. I am absolutely floored. Thank you all so much. I remember when this channel got its first big boost and hit 1,000 subs almost 3 years ago. I love feeling old. Anyway, to celebrate, I want to take a look back at all the videos I've made over the years. Not just from this channel, but also from my first channel, Crabapple 7, where I mainly made my own versions of popular series using Legos. I've selected some videos from both channels to share some fun facts about them, how they were made, etc. Obviously, not every video will be here, most of them are pretty standard with not much to say about them, but we still have a lot to get through, so let's get going. My original channel trailer contained plenty of broken promises for things to come. My Minecraft Let's Play was cancelled after only 4 episodes, an Escapist Let's Play never happened until I briefly played it on stream on this channel over the summer, toy reviews never ended up happening, and LEGO Pokemon was the only thing in that video where I actually completed the original vision for the series, which was 20 episodes and a movie. In LEGO Pokemon Episode 1, you might notice the Oshawott figure does not have a tail. It just broke off one day and I never bothered to glue it back on, so I did my best to frame each shot to not show the exposed spot on his butt where the tail used to be. You'll also notice that a lot of props for the series are visible on the pool table, but the general rule was that if it wasn't on the base plate, it didn't exist. Additionally, the reason there are only 4 gyms instead of the standard 8 is because I just didn't have enough Pokemon figures for 8 gyms. That's also why all of the gym leaders use first stage Pokemon only in all their battles. And this episode is the most viewed Crabapple 7 video, currently sitting at 40,000 views, and it was my most viewed video ever for the longest time until a closer look at Skywing surpassed that number in 2022. LEGO Pokemon Episode 2 saw the introduction of the main rival Jake, and it's pretty clearly established that he was meant to be a return to the old style of asshole rival. However, this was the only episode where he was actually depicted as such. Also, the battle totally wasn't fair because Randy used 2 Pokemon while Jake only had 1. The LEGO Cops trailer contained quite a bit of footage shot specifically for that trailer and not used in the actual episode, for example, the car crash. LEGO Cops Episode 1 was the only episode of LEGO Cops because after making that one episode, I straight up ran out of ideas. I'm not joking, I had 0 ideas for episodes that I could realistically film past that point. Also, the LEGO City Police Force has to be the most lax police force ever because Johnson specifically tells Phil he doesn't need an application or training to be a police officer. LEGO Pokemon Episode 6 was the last video filmed before my basement furniture got rearranged during the summer of 2015. Episode 7 was the first video filmed afterwards, and you can tell the lighting is a bit different since the pool table is in a new spot now. Episode 7 is also the only episode to feature Randy as the only human character. The whole episode is just him and his Pokemon, and you can guess why that would be a bad idea. The episode is incredibly short and not much happens because Randy doesn't have anyone else to talk to. Champion Lisa's minifigure is also visible on the pool table despite her not officially debuting in the series for another 3 years in episode 20. One look at my Minecraft Let's Play will tell you that I did not have the means to actually record my screen, and that'll become a pattern with gameplay going forward. For Minecraft, I played on my Xbox 360 and I propped up my iPad mini on a small folding desk in front of the TV. I had also promised the Week of Minecraft, 5 videos in a row from August 10th to 14th, 2015. Episode 1 was posted on August 11th, Episode 2 came out on the 14th, Episode 3 was released on October 6th, Episode 4 was October 10th, and Episode 5 was never made. LEGO Pokemon Episode 8 was the final video filmed on my pool table. We still have it today, and it's still just as infested with random Legos, but the filming space was a bit of a tight squeeze with the model railroad table right behind me, so I decided not to record there anymore. Let's Play Pokemon Red was a similar story to Minecraft in that the series was short-lived and very poorly recorded. I just sat my 3DS down in front of the iPad and went to town. Same goes for the Pokemon Sun and Moon gameplay that would come later. Pizza Cycle was a product of my friend and I being bored while hanging out one day, so we set up some figures on the model railroad in my basement and had fun. And the result was certainly a video. We filmed it in 2 parts on 2 separate days and posted the first half on my friend's channel and the second half on mine, making it my very first collab. It's also quite possibly my darkest video because 2 dogs die. Also, the giant robot is the protector of water from Bionicle 2015, albeit without its mask and weapon. My own custom Mixels tribe was a shockingly popular video and the last one filmed on my original iPad mini because I broke it. I was fiddling with it one day and dropped it on the cold hard tile of my grandma's kitchen, which left 2 nasty cracks in the screen. It still worked fine, somehow, but it was soon replaced by an iPad Pro. This was also my first video filmed in my new permanent recording spot, the basement floor. Quest for Creation was my first attempt at a Ninjago series, which only got 1 episode because I realized my idea for the lore behind it didn't make much sense, and I only had a vague idea of where I wanted the series to go. LEGO Pokemon Episode 9 featured Servine, the first Pokemon figure from a batch of new ones I ordered to use in the series. It's pretty easy to tell which ones are the new ones because they're made of a different plastic and are generally much smaller. It took a couple years for all of the new ones to appear, but this was the first. This episode is also the final time Randy uses Servine in a trainer battle. He does use it against some wild Pokemon in Episode 11, but literally never again, despite it being completely undefeated ever since he caught it in Episode 1, yes, I counted. Episode 10 is the only episode to feature a Pokemon trade, and a very lopsided one at that. Getting a Zorua for a Pidove is a steal. Jake traded down big time. It's also the first time Randy loses a battle on screen. Episode 11 is the only episode to feature a Pokemon egg hatching and Randy releasing a Pokemon. It's also something of a tribute to a different LEGO Pokemon series that inspired my own, made by Bespengard Studios. Their series had a handful of episodes revolving around a zombie apocalypse, including Ghost and Dark-type Pokemon going on a rampage, which was reflected by having Dark-types go crazy in my episode. Also, the geography surrounding this episode is all kinds of f***ed. Here's a map of Unova. Randy started his journey in Nuvema Town, which is here. By the end of episode 10, he was in Castelia City, which is here. But in episode 11, he takes his Pokemon egg to the Dream Yard, which would have forced him to backtrack all the way to here. And then in episode 12, he arrives in Driftvale City all the way over here. Before we go to episode 12, the trailer for my Pokemon Sun Let's Play is currently my least viewed public video at a whopping 27 views. And now that I've pointed it out, it's probably going to get a whole bunch more. The Let's Play itself only had 3 episodes uploaded, but I actually filmed up to episode 8 before calling it quits and playing through the rest of the game on my own time. Now, LEGO Pokemon Episode 12. The same friend who made Pizza Cycle with me was originally going to voice Gerald's Munna, but we didn't finish the video in one sitting, and when it eventually became clear we never would finish it, I went ahead and scrapped what footage we had to reshoot the episode by myself. Total Drama LEGO Episode 1 was the start of my 3rd attempt at such a series. The first attempt had multiple seasons planned out, but only 1 episode filmed long before I started actually doing YouTube. The second attempt, much later, featured a collection of characters from my other series, plus some new ones, and had 3 whole episodes completely finished but never uploaded. I still have them. Maybe they'll see the light of day eventually, who knows. LEGO Pokemon Episode 14 was something of a milestone for the series. I finally stopped mouthing my own sound effects and started using stock sounds. I updated the background music to Generation 7. The end screen now freezes and fades to grayscale instead of fading straight to black like all the previous episodes. And it's the first video to use the new Pokeball channel intro instead of the old Minecraft Apple slide. And I achieved this neat little flashing effect by pulling up a white screen on my phone and tilting it up and down slightly as I recorded. Total Drama LEGO Episode 3 took me a shockingly long time to film due to a lot of moving car shots, many of which took multiple takes to get right. You'll notice that whenever a car comes to a stop, the back end isn't fully in frame to hide my finger pushing it, and when they start, the front end is just out of frame for the same reason. This shot of Damien swerving was too hard to get right without seeing my finger, so I just had to film it with my finger in frame and then zoom it in post. LEGO Pokemon Episode 15 is the first time we see Randy without his hat. It's also the final appearances of Randy's Servine, Sandile, and Oshawott/Duat. Yet another case of Randy never using a Pokemon again once it evolves. Total Drama LEGO Episode 4 was the first video under my new upload schedule of every other Sunday, and it was my first video to have an end card, although most videos that had end cards ended up losing them once they were marked as made for kids in 2020. This episode was also a challenge to film because of not using base plates during the arena scene, so a lot of figures kept falling over. LEGO Pokemon Episode 17 mentions additions to Pokemon that don't appear on screen, Braviary and Mandibuzz. This was to slightly hide the fact that I had a very limited number of figures and wanted to make it seem like more species of Pokemon were involved here. Total Drama LEGO Episode 6 was the first time I had a guest star voice an existing character and had it actually make it to YouTube. In this case, DrewTube, now known as the Cobra Kai Kid, provided the voice of Jack. The flashback and reunion scenes in LEGO Pokemon Episode 20 were originally going to be much more emotional, but I went with a more lighthearted tone because it was the only way I could really get the backstory to work. The Halloween Harvest Moon was my first attempt at a holiday special, not counting April Fools. I wouldn't call it good, but it was pretty fun to make. LEGO Pokemon the movie, on the other hand, was hell to make. I had to practically wrestle with iMovie most of the time because it cannot handle projects this big, and I had to split it into 2 parts because of it. I wanted to release it on December 9th, 2018, but it turned out to be a much bigger beast than I expected, so I had to really push myself to ultimately get it out on December 31st of that year. Even though 20 episodes and a movie was the original plan when I started, by the time I got here, I fully intended to do a second season, which never happened. That's why this ends on a sort of cliffhanger. It wasn't intended to be the end. I eventually replaced the Season 2 idea with a mini-series that would have just adapted the villain arc from Season 2 to at least attempt to give the series closure, but that didn't happen either. LEGO Pokemon the movie basically killed whatever enjoyment I still had left with making LEGO videos, and uploads would become much less frequent from this point on. The movie was followed by the Quest for Creation reboot, which lasted 2 episodes this time instead of 1. I had 10 planned, but I lost motivation after the second one. Top 10 Total Drama World Tour songs was another collaboration with Drew. He has since privated his half of the collab, so unfortunately you can only watch part 1 on my channel today. The Wings of Fire Arc 1 pitch meeting was my first time dipping my toes into Wings of Fire content after getting back into the series a few months prior. Something to note is that I did not script my videos at all on the old channel. I just went in with a general idea of what I wanted to do and went from there as I recorded. The completed video ended up being a little over 7 minutes long, but originally I wasn't summarizing nearly enough and hit the 10-minute mark before getting through book 4. It was at that point I realized it was going to be way too long and started over from the beginning. It was also the most fun I'd had making a video in a long time, kinda planting some seeds of what was to come. Total Drama LEGO Episode 11 ended up being the final episode of the series, cut off 2 episodes early. I agonized over how to end the show, but I just couldn't think of a way that satisfied me. What I knew for sure was that Lauren, the season villain, was going out in episode 12, leaving Brian and Shania as the finalists. Shania hadn't done much all season, especially post-merge, and as pointed out to me in the comments, Brian was a jerk. I was originally gonna have him win, but as I started to realize where these commenters were coming from, I realized he really didn't deserve to win. The plan I came up with then was to have Brian accidentally injure Shania in the process of getting Lauren eliminated, then in the last moments of the final challenge realize how much of an ass he was and help Shania win instead. But the episodes never got made and TDL sadly went unfinished. And then we come to the final video on that channel, the rise, fall, and end of Crabapple 7. In fall 2021, after over a year of no uploads, I was moving to college and couldn't make LEGO videos anymore, so I decided the time was right to finally say goodbye. I didn't delete the channel, it's still around today and every video is still up publicly, but it'll never see another new video again. Let's move on to my current channel, Charcoal's Den, formerly known as Wings of Charcoal. This channel's original trailer came about when I was still working on Crabapple 7 in between episodes 10 and 11 of Total Drama LEGO, and I intended to give both channels equal treatment, but obviously that didn't happen. The Wings of Fire Arc 1 pitch meeting was re-uploaded from my old channel and edited slightly to remove any branding for that channel that was in it. My voice audition for Blue Moon was originally unlisted on Crabapple 7, but I once again re-uploaded it publicly on this channel less than a week after I made the original. How I would improve Book 10 was basically the video that made me start this channel. I'd considered it before, but when I came up with the idea for this video, I knew I had to make it. Only problem was, Wings of Fire discussions wouldn't really fit on Crabapple 7, it was just too different from the stuff people subscribe to that channel for, so I made this channel instead, and you know how that went. The audio for the Starflight the Babysitter animatic was taken from a livestream I hosted on the audiobook channel Jade Mountain Library, where we had a list of available voice actors with the characters they played, and viewers could request scenes for certain characters to improv. In this case, someone requested Starflight being tasked with babysitting Bumblebee for the day. The third planet map part was the final re-upload from Crabapple 7. It had originally been unlisted on that channel since May of 2020, and finally went public on this one in October of that year. Scorch and Slush was going to be a Wings of Fire fan series following the Sandwing Skywing hybrid Scorch and the Seawing Icewing hybrid Slush, as they had misadventures in the Town of Possibility. If the concept sounds familiar, that's because it was later reworked into another fan series I launched, Possibilities. I am no longer involved in that project, but I'll leave a link to their channel in the description so you can follow production if you'd like. My history with Wings of Fire was the video that made me realize that the discussions were what I wanted to stick with after a few months of experimenting with animation to not very good results. You'll notice that after this video, animated content more or less dropped off, and the discussion type videos became way more common. The video, simply titled A New Look, was the first time I overhauled my character sprites, updating Charcoal's whole design and completely redrawing him. It's also the first video on this channel to include an end card. My map part for What's New Pussycat is blocked for copyright outside of the US and Canada, so if you live anywhere else and don't have a VPN, you cannot watch it. My top 5 favorite characters surprisingly still holds true. Mostly. I don't know if Peril is still on the list, Queen Scarlet might take her place, but the rest of the list is unchanged. I'm kinda surprised at how popular it was compared to some of my other earlier videos, considering it was basically meant to be filler while we waited for Book 14. Come Along With Me was the first of 3 maps I've hosted myself, and I'm quite happy with how it turned out. Looking back though, I definitely made the intro too long. Assigning Pokemon types to each tribe was the first video to feature Charcoal drawn at a 3/4 angle instead of a straight side profile, and fun fact, only his head is different. The video also received a fair bit of criticism for how I said Mudwings were ground water or rock water if they were a blood egg. It was pointed out that ground fighting and rock fighting were much better choices, which I agree with. I would also tweak the regular adult Silkwings to be Bug Fairy instead of pure Bug like the Dragonets. The Falcon AU Part 1 left me with a bit of a dilemma. I only planned Part 1 and didn't know where to go from there, so the rest of the AU series was basically me making stuff up as I went along and having it actually kinda work out. Jumping ahead to how good is the 3rd arc actually, this was my first quote-unquote mega review and this channel's first anniversary video. The vast majority of that video was written on my phone in the back room of the subway I worked at that summer because I had a lot of free time there some days. It was in a Walmart, those subways don't get much business. If you look at my Winglets ranking video, you might notice that they are in the same order as they are on the big series ranking list in 2023. My opinion on them did not change much. A closer look at Skywings was my first video to really blow up. I had nearly 900 subscribers at the time, but this video pushed me past the 1,000 mark and I blew past 2,000 only 3 weeks later. I think it's because up until this point I had been abbreviating Wings of Fire as WOF in my video titles, but this was the first time I put the full series title, which probably made it show up in a lot more searches. Once I realized that, I went back and added the full Wings of Fire title to any videos I could. The Falcon AU Part 5 was the first video on this channel to have a guest star, in this case Moonlight Draws aka Strawberry Moon. I also added some minor shading to the scales on Charcoal's sprites, and the script that I hand Moon is the B-movie script. There's plenty of things wrong with the protagonist ship tier list, but I mainly realized there were a few pairings who met the criteria to be on the list but I forgot to include, like Umber and Kibble or Starflight and Sunny. I might remake it someday, but don't count on it. Kibble Makes a Commercial was my first attempt at a proper animatic in a good while, and man was it fun to make. I happen to think it is very funny and deserves way more views than it has. Also, the background music is the same one used in the Krusty Krab training video episode of SpongeBob, and it was previously used on the show Ren and Stimpy. Deathbringer's Trial was my second map, my first and so far only voice-acted map, and is currently my most viewed video ever across every channel I've run. As of writing, it sits at 115,000 views, making it my only video so far to break 100k. A closer look at Seawings was the next instance of a sprite overhaul, and the last one for over 2 years. This time I added even more shading to Charcoal, probably a little too much. The Book 15 review is a video where my opinion on the book has changed a bit since making it. In the standalone review back in 2022, right after it came out, I gave it a 5 out of 10. But in the 2023 ranking list, I realized how much of a mess the book actually is and ranked it as the second worst in the whole series. My history on YouTube is basically a rehash of the story I told back in the final Crabapple 7 video, with a bit more detail, adding on everything that had happened since, and it was generally just a much better made video. The tragic tale of the Netflix series is a bit outdated now, since the Wings of Fire TV show has since been picked up again by Amazon earlier this year. Last I heard, they are now in the writer's room working on scripts. A closer look at Nightwings was purposely saved as the series finale, hence why I did the Pantalan tribes first and then doubled back. I also had to push the Pantalan ones out relatively quickly so that I could have the Nightwing one ready for Wings of Fire's 10th anniversary, July 1st, 2022. My part for Dragon Sheep Studios' Ultimate Wings of Fire Vine map was a remake of an animatic I had made over a year prior. The audio used in it is from Code Ment, aka Code Geass Abridged, episode 16, which is the same video that contains the famous meme, I'm at soup.
What do you mean you're at soup? I mean I'm at soup!
The Geotracks video was the first episode of Char Rambles, then known as Nostalgia Trip. It also featured a completely redrawn video background, which I still use to this day. The previous background had been drawn by Sidelight on Discord, but I now felt confident enough in my skills to draw it myself. The Thomas and Friends model series video is one of my favorite videos I've ever made because it came out almost exactly how I wanted it to. I really wanted to re-record the Hit Era section because I did it on a different day than the model series section and I thought I sounded a bit more tired, but I didn't have the time to redo it, so I just ran with what I had. I wasn't expecting the world building video to blow up as much as it did, but hey, pleasant surprise. I'll admit I don't still stand by some of the suggestions I made in that video, mainly having to do with the tribe designs. That's another thing I might revisit someday. Scarlet Dream Visiting Glory was made purely because school was keeping me too busy for a full-length video, but I needed something to post, so I made that. And then I still didn't post for 2 more months after that. The 2023 series ranking list was the first video where I started working on it long in advance to ensure I didn't burn myself out. It was released in August, but I started writing it in January, and it's another video that I think is criminally underwatched. As you may know, the video It's Time for a Change was when I officially renamed the channel from Wings of Charcoal to Charcoal's Den. I almost replaced Charcoal as the mascot with this guy because I felt like he was, and still is, a better representation of me personally, but in the end I could never replace Charcoal, he's too iconic. The story of Charcoal was originally going to be the 10,000 subscriber special instead of this video, but I told my Discord server members that if they could count to 5,000 I would make the video early, so it ended up coming out over a year before I actually hit 10k, and I had to come up with something else. The Wings of Fire AI tournament took quite a few tries to get ChatGPT's prompt right. I had to specifically add a sentence saying the characters had to kill each other because the AI kept making them hug it out and abandon the fight whenever I tested it. The video on Hoops and Yo-Yo Ruin Christmas was my first ever Christmas video, and I originally planned to review Hoops and Yo-Yo's Halloween this year, but school got in the way and I couldn't finish it in time. So now it sits as a half-finished script waiting for next year. The ChatGPT Arc 4 video had a funny moment where I specifically told the AI not to name any characters after canon ones, only for it to do exactly that at least 3 times. I think this was because I said existing characters when I gave it the prompt, so even though I told it not to include them, ChatGPT saw the mention of them and thought, hey, I should include that. The Steamed Hams dub was a shockingly elaborate scheme. Near the end of March, I was working on the CGI Thomas video, and I made a few posts saying it would probably be late due to issues with my editing software, which was true. But it occurred to me, the video wasn't releasing that weekend, April Fool's was on Monday, and I had a bit of time to slap something together. So I took Steamed Hams, dubbed over Skinner, and set up the premiere on March 31st, complete with the thumbnail, full title, and description for the Thomas video to make it look as real as I could. And then just to make sure I fooled as many people as possible with this, I went a step further and employed a bit of misdirection. Monday morning, I pulled an obvious April Fool's prank announcing that the Jade Mountain Archive and I are the same person because I get a lot of comments saying we sound alike, and I rebranded my Discord server to look like him for good measure to make everyone think that was my April Fool's joke for the day. So when the premiere started, everyone expected the real CGI Thomas video, only to be greeted by...
Well, Seymour, I made it, despite your directions.
Superintendent Chalmers, welcome. As I said in the Falcon AU Part 6, the animatic shown near the end was going to be part of the original ending I had in mind, where we have the plot twist that Falcon is Scarlet's daughter, but I became dissatisfied with it as time went on. It just felt really contrived. And then A Guide to the Dragon World made it so that plot twist couldn't happen anymore because Scarlet's husband Canyon died before Falcon's egg could have been conceived. I was relieved though, because it gave me an excuse to make a different ending. The Patreon announcement is Charcoal's most recent sprite overhaul, where I redrew him from the ground up for the first time in over 3 years, complete with an updated color scheme and a much better drawn head. The timeline video for this year's channel anniversary is the longest video I've made so far at nearly an hour long, and it's currently my most viewed video since A Closer Look at Nightwings. And most recently, my map part for Mr. Blue Sky. As you may know, over the summer I started pledging to the Warrior Cats YouTuber Moonkitty on Patreon and subsequently joined her Stone Clan series. The patrons send her random voice lines saying whatever, and she makes characters for us and has to make it into a video. It's a lot of fun. The map part I made features my character Bayleaf in various situations that I've recorded for him but haven't been in a video yet. Bringing a horse to camp, running a toll booth scam, bonding with Appleheart on the Dawn Patrol, finding a cave full of crystals he can eat, and fantasizing about Nutella. And that is everything. And truly, thank you all 10,000 of you and counting. If you'd come up to me years ago and asked if I thought I'd be where I am right now, I would have said it was just a pipe dream. It's been an incredible journey, and however long I spend on YouTube, I'm going to spend it working to earn what you've all given me. With that, thank you for visiting Charcoal's Den, and I'll see you all in the next video. Special thanks to my supporters on Patreon. If you want to support the channel, you can pledge at the link in the description for perks such as your name in the credits and early access to new videos.